Happy Self-Love Sunday. I am Moe Sass, your host of Self-Love Sundays with Sass. I am your certified vision and empowerment coach who comes every single Sunday so we can talk about all the ways in which we can better our best. And I'm going to start this week off with a nice trigger warning that some of the things that we're going to talk about today may trigger you, and if it does, please turn off the video. And also remember that everything that I speak about in terms of today is strictly my opinion, and it's my opinion based off of my living situation, things that I have encountered, not just with myself but also with clients that I service. So I just wanted to start off by saying that, and let's get into it, y'all, because this week my mind was absolutely blown, and we have to talk about it. And we're only talking about it because I wanted to say this too. I don't really talk about people's lives. I think that it's very important for you to worry about you and your life and getting yourself together as opposed to talking about other people's. But this story happens to be important because it actually is in my industry. So what I'm talking about is Derek and Danae Jackson. Danae Jackson actually went on My Dear Wifey podcast this week, and she spoke about her story. I actually talked about Derek Jackson when the story first broke, but 2 years, maybe 2 years ago now, I think it is, maybe a year or two now, when the story broke. And the reason being is because he is a coach. He's a coach. So Derek Jackson is a coach for women. He's wrote books. He's made millions of dollars off of teaching women essentially how to look out for narcissistic or cheating men, or whatever you call it. He calls himself a guru in that space, and he has millions and millions of women, similar to the Kevin Samuels, the man who died. Millions of women flocked to him, asking him all sorts of questions in terms of what they should and shouldn't do in a relationship, what they should and shouldn't look out for when it comes to the opposite sex. And here, when I made the video, and I'll see if I can link it in there, when I talked about it, I remember the first time I said I was going to talk about it. And one of my friends was like, I know you're going to give it to him. I know you're going to go off. And my first reaction, I didn't say anything to her. I was like, that's what you expect, right? That is not what I did. First of all, my belief is this. When it comes to people who call themselves relationship gurus, or guru to teach you how to deal with another relationship with your partner. My first inclination when it comes to all this is to ask you, when do you start to trust you? When do you trust your gut? See, the thing is, I want to say it's okay to do research. It's okay to educate yourself. I'm not saying it. But at some point, you have to understand that when people get on the internet and they give you relationship advice, it's generic. It really is. So they're giving you their opinion based upon whatever that is, when it comes to them. And so it turns out that he was a complete liar. It turns out that everything that he taught other women, he was at home doing the complete opposite. And not treating his fiance before they became married the same. He actually treated her like the guys that he would often display in his videos. So when I say he's a liar, I'm not talking about a liar in the sense of the information he was giving you, because the truth of the matter is, had she listened to what he was saying, she may not have been with him. And I'm talking about in terms of, how he was at home with his wife, in terms of, putting on the front of, I have this beautiful relationship, and I'm not this kind of man. In all reality, he was giving you guys information basically based upon how he was. But the thing about it is, that happens all day, every day, right? People say one thing and live something completely different. This is exactly why I come and I talk every single Sunday about healing you, right? I talk about trusting yourself. Learn to trust your intuition in your household, because not everybody thinks and acts the same. You go home, questioning or looking at your partner in a particular way based upon what somebody said to you on the internet, and they have no idea what the person that you've tied yourself to, who he is, what he is, what the personality's like, the character's right, but you heard this thing and you're running with it. And my question is, why are you doing that? Is it because there's something in the inside of you that didn't trust in the beginning? There has to be something there that you need someone on the internet who knows nothing about you, nothing about your life, nothing about your household to run your life, essentially. So let's back up, because I'm getting a little bit of ahead, but for those of you who don't know who I'm talking about, you could look him up. It's Derek Jackson. His last name is spelled a little bit differently. It is JXN. And Danae Jackson is his wife. She was on My Dear Wifey podcast. The host is Laterras Whitfield. And so I want to get into the interview. We're going to get right to it today. The interview was interesting to me. It was interesting to me because they were talking about really, really serious matters. And, the host, in my opinion, I've watched his podcast before, and he was definitely a little bit different in this interview. And maybe he was different in this interview because, it was such a heavy topic, and she is a woman who has never given interviews before. So maybe he felt the need to want to try to keep it light. But the truth of the matter is they were talking about some very serious, traumatic situations, and he spent majority of the podcast like laughing and almost to me, and this is just my opinion, and I'm not saying anything bad about him, this is just the way I feel. And a lot of times we don't like to say what we feel because we're scared of the backlash, and I ain't that, boo. This is exactly how I feel. I felt like there's nothing wrong with laughter, of course not, but in serious situations, to drive home certain points, because her story and her testimony is very important. This is why her story and testimony is important. Not that millions of women and men don't go through what she went through. The fact is that her husband is a public figure who teaches, literally teaches and sells millions of books on teaching women to really build their self-esteem, to look out for these men, to leave these men. And he literally was doing the exact thing. So that's her story. Her testimony is important because a lot of times as women, and men too, but we're dealing with this from a woman aspect. So let me just say that. But a lot of times women will, see other men or talk to other men, and they're giving them all this great advice. Meanwhile, in their life, they're cheaters. In their life, they treat the women that they're with like trash. It happens. And then you end up falling for this man and his advice. Meanwhile, he's doing literally the exact opposite in their home. I knew men like that who would, really like, they were my boys, but I didn't live in their house, so I didn't know what their house life was like, but they would be beating their women. It just was what it was, right? So in real life it happens, but the reason why this becomes important is because this is a larger scale and a larger platform to help people really understand. This is why you got to heal and trust yourself, because people out here just straight, living lies. And here you are thinking this is such a beautiful man and how he's going to treat women. And of course, he was doing none of that. But what I loved about the interview, so I want to get back to it. I just wanted to tell you why it was important. I want to get back to the interview. The reason why I love the interview, despite the fact that I felt it was too much laughing and I get that also. I want to say this up front. I get that she was trying to be humorous and she has like a little bit of a dry humor to herself. There were some very key points that she made. Number one, she talked about the fact that she had these traumas happen to her, right? She experienced, abandonment from her father. Essentially, that's what she said. Those were her words, in the abandonment and rejection from her father. And then she also experienced being raped. And then she went into a relationship with no healing and essentially no help. She didn't have any help for that. So she experienced something very traumatic. I loved Danae Jackson's interview from this standpoint. She owned her stuff. She owned her stuff. She said, I was toxic at one point. She said, I didn't do my healing. I didn't do my work. I would bust a window / a tire, because, and I'm going to tell you why this is important. The importance of her owning her piece in all of it. She said at one point he had them coming and going on the schedule, and sometimes her and the women that he was seeing, they were passing each other in the hallway, basically saying, I was a willing participant in some of his mess. I was a willing participant. She did not claim victim. Now everybody else can say what they want. People put stuff in the comments. She never claimed victim. She literally said, I was a willing participant. I saw my mess. This is so important, ladies, because a lot of times we get up here on this good internet and we dog these men, and he did this to me and he did that to me, as if you had excuse me, as if you had no other choice in the matter, as if you couldn't have made a different choice. Danae Jackson didn't say that. She didn't. Now, I'm not saying, let me be 100% clear. He is dead wrong. Dead wrong. I've been in a relationship. I talk about it in my book. Okay, Finding Your Way, 7 Ways to Love and Heal Yourself. That when I own what happened to me, I'm not saying that this person, he was good and what he did was okay. No, but when you own your stuff, that makes you the CEO of your life. And that means then if you are a willing participant in it and you own it, then you can absolutely change it. A lot of times we don't change our behaviors because we don't own our part in it. It's so important to own your part in your mess. Because it is something when you allow yourself to be a part of a ring of women sleeping with this man and being afraid to lose a man or being afraid to lose a woman. And fellas, don't lose me in this. Just take it and do vice versa if it's you. But you can't be afraid to lose somebody. So much so, you're willing to allow your body to be used. Willing to scheme and plot, because she talks about also in the interview about how at one time she used a man on her job to try to make him jealous because, she wanted him to stay and she wanted him to come back to her. Where does your self-esteem have to be? Where does your self-worth have to be that you have to do that? And I'm just want to stop right here and say to you, if you are a woman that's doing that, if you're a woman that's feeling the need to go through the man's phone, to search through his car, listen, when I talk to you, I'm not talking from theory. This is exactly what I've done. If you are a woman who feels that you have to play games and do all of that to keep the man that you with, I need you to really and truly seek help immediately. I need you to seek out therapy immediately, because that's something inside you. We can say that man is driving us crazy. We can say we know he lying. But you know something? If you're not prepared to do something about the lying besides acting like a crazy person, wanting to tear up the things that you guys have built and curse and go out and fight, then stop. I think it was Tamar Braxton's mother who said, unless you are willing to do something about what you are seeking and looking for, let that man cheat in peace, because you know the truth. You don't need to go on this good internet and listen to Derek Jackson tell you all the things to look out for. Trust yourself. Trust your gut. Trust that you're not crazy. And here's the thing. If you may feel that you're crazy because you have had some trauma happen in your life, then it's time to go get help for the trauma. But this is on you, boo. It's not on him. He's being who he's shown you he was. And this is what I love about Danae Jackson. She talked about the fact that that's who Derek was even in college. And they're young. Let me just say this too. Stop expecting true grown women responses from these children. And I know you'll be like, oh, she's in her 30s. Yes, she's in her 30s, but she's a very young 30-year-old in terms of, her healing experience and what she's going through. And she's literally telling you guys, in the situation that happens with Derek, it's not a grown adult woman who shows up in that instinct. It's her inner child that shows up. Her inner child who just wants to be loved and wants to be seen and wants to be accepted and wants to be loved. That's who is showing up. That's a child. That's a child crying out. Listen, no matter how many times my father tells me or my mother tells me, for those who don't live with their mom, they're coming to get me, and I sit on the stoop and I wait every single time. They never show up. I still keep going out to that stoop, hoping one day, that they're going to do what they say they're going to do. That's what children do. And that's who typically responds when we're not healed or in our healing. Our inner child shows up in those situations. So getting back to, her interview, she was making those points. She was talking about how she was a willing participant and how every single time, she played the games to get him back, and she got him back. She got the real him back. She thought somebody different was going to show up, but how could it? When you've been so accepting of who he is and played into the games. So, fast forward into the story, she gets pregnant. They decide to get married. And listen, they decide to get married with no real healing. No real healing. Although they went to couples therapy, and he had to, write down how many women that he ended up sleeping with, and he had to come clean it. He had to confess. But you know what was missing in all of that? She never talked about the extensive therapy that he was supposed to. She talked about the fact that she went to therapy and had 3 therapists. Never talked about him and him going through extensive therapy and staying with it. Never talked about it. Never talked about him he talked about confessing behind the scenes, never coming to this screen and saying to the women that he was coaching, I am that man, the man that I speak about. So I'm teaching you how to stay away from me. He never came and did any of that. He led everybody on, everybody. And so within that, she was going through mental and emotional anguish, essentially. And she talked about the fact that, she was a willing participant in her mental and emotional anguish because she just felt like, I could not leave this man. And if you, to me, it was when you don't get healed, you'll tie yourself to humans and people, not realizing that how many people, there's like billions of people in the world. And here you are about to commit suicide, about to, literally are unhealthy, not eating right, not thinking right from one human. I need you to really think about that for a second. I need you to think about that seriously. This is you get one life. I talked about this a little bit last week, and you're going to tie it to misery, shame, and guilt behind one man or one woman? Like, literally, that's a mindset. That's not healing from the trauma. And so let's talk about this, because we're going to move, because I don't want to make this too long. But the thing in the interview where she talked about after he got caught, the women started coming out. They went live. They did a video with him and her, and she came on there, and everybody on the internet went crazy because of how she looked, which was absolutely horrible. Here a woman is dealing with the fact that that the man that's a very public figure is sloppy in his cheating endeavors, and it's come public, and y'all want her to come on there with her hair did, makeup did. This woman is in mental hell. And like, real talk, we need to talk about that as a community. What's going on with us where it's like, she got to come on and look, because, the women he's cheating with, she look a certain way. She deserved to be cheated on. Like, real talk, some of y'all are unhealed and unhinged. I said it. Some of y'all are unhealed and unhinged. Nobody deserves that. Nobody. And you know what the odd part about it is? Most of the women who bark the loudest and go off the most, they are the ones who are bitter and angry because of what actually happened to them. They've been cheated on, they've been looked over, they've been rejected, they've been abandoned, and soon as a woman go through it, they're the main ones that tear them down. I'm telling you, y'all need to get some real help. Because y'all talking about like surface stuff. Her hair, her makeup, like, really? Like, people were going through the worst pain in their lives, and you talking about how they look. You need to really get yourself together. All right, now I digress, and I'm gonna get back to her. And so after that, she came out, and because I think the interviewer, he missed this point too. He really, really missed the mark on this. When she came back out and she did that voice note, and she was cursing everybody, she was using Psalms, I think 109, and she was like, I come against everybody, bind every tongue that, speak about me and my husband. Okay, he really missed a point there. Because he was so busy laughing, trying to make it light, trying to make it seem like the people who were wrong, who reacted to it, he missed this. The reason why people were upset that she did that wasn't necessary. It was because of the single fact of nobody was rising up any tongues against her and him, he was messing with those women. They were actually talking about the fact of the women that were coming out talking about sleeping with him. And you know about it. So you over here reading Psalms, reading a Bible verse, and you're missing the point. They're like, hold on. At the end of the day, yeah, you're his wife, but he's, cheating on you. And we're literally talking about that fact. So why are you upset with us? That's why people were That's why people were mad. Not that she did it. And this is another point that he missed. You know what she talked about in that instance? She talked about the fact that she had started getting help for herself. She was going to therapy. She was getting the healing that she thought she needed for the sexual, for the rape, and dealing with the things with her father. But she said, I started getting into the Bible. I wasn't always into the Bible. Man, did he miss this point. Oh my God, for my people who find spirituality, this is so important. My God, I wish you would have hit on this. First of all, as someone who is a Christian, Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. I will never tell you who to believe in. I'll just tell you who saved me and who I rock with all day, every day. Okay. When we first, and I say we, because I can never talk above you, y'all. I walk with y'all every single day. Everything that I'm coming here talking about is something that I've either walked through, currently walking through, or walked the client through. I'm never going to talk to you about something that is not me. When you first get into your spirituality and your healing journey, and you're finding whoever you decide to call your God, let me just say this to you. Please, in the beginning, spend your time learning, forming the relationship, but don't get on this here good internet spewing everything you just learned. I'm gonna put it into a analogy that you can understand. You're going to school to be a doctor, okay? And when you first start to learn about anatomy and physiology and say you're going to be a surgeon, you first start learning about surgery. Do you know they don't let them, come right out of that and go into the room and start cutting people open, right? No, they don't. They have to go through years of schooling. They have to go through, they have to sit with another doctor and as almost essentially as an intern, watch a couple of surgeries and then do them. Okay. Cause she talked about I didn't know, I was just, I was reading. I was like, God, Jesus, I'm gonna put this into practice. And they were laughing about it. And I get that she was kind of making a joke. So don't get me wrong. I'm not, taking it out of context or serious, but that is something that we need to talk about. Because the first thing that we do when we learn about, Christianity or whatever religion, the reason why we turn folks away from it is because the first thing you do is start beating people over the head with the Bible and rebuking people in the name of Jesus, hitting them over the head with it. And what we really need to do is take it in for ourselves. Before we start, and we're going to talk about, because again, I'm going to move on from this. I thought the interview was great in the sense of listening to her testimony, telling women about the fact of, I'm owning my mess in all of this. I'm not owning his stuff, what he did. He was absolutely wrong in, but I'm going to own it. And because I can own it, that means I can change my life. That means I can heal. I can move on from these things. So I thought the interview in itself was great, because I hope that after that interview that you women start to trust yourself and get off of these TikToks, listen to these people, all these single people, or all these all these people give you all this great advice. Listen. Learn to trust yourself. There's nothing wrong. I'm not even saying there's nothing wrong with listening to, different people's, but given I love they had the Black Love series when you had real couples talking about what was going on with them. And I'm not saying you have to emulate. I don't think you should emulate any couple. I think you should build a love and a life off of your core values, what you believe, and how you want to walk in the season with somebody. Okay, I want to be like everybody else. Stop wishing and hoping for people's lives, because you don't like we're learning now. You don't really know what goes on behind the scenes. Okay, so what I really want to talk about is, the next week I'm actually going to talk about, ways to begin your healing journey. But today I want to talk about, your core values. Why is core values important? Core values are important to have them and to build them and to develop them, because when you have core values and you start to meet people, I don't care whether these are relationships or somebody you want to marry, partnerships, whatever you want to call it. If you have a set of core values and you meet someone and they don't fall within those core values, that will tell you that that person is not for you. Because I'm going to tell you something right now. There's some woman out there right now, sprinkle, that will be with a guy like Derrick Jackson and be like, hey, listen, as long as he provides for me, I don't care and won't care about him. And they'll do. There's some women out there who will be okay with that. It just is what it is. And let me tell you something. I'm not in any place or predicament to talk about those women at all. That's their life and their prerogative. But if you're a woman who desires certain things, whatever that is that you desire, get some core values about yourself. And then, because this is what I do with my clients all the time. We talk about it. It's like, hey, listen, this is what I desire in a man. I want somebody who's vulnerable, authentic, who has integrity, who is spiritual, may not read the Bible every day, but believe in God, knows in God, can pray over me, understanding that somebody who's, understanding, empathetic, whatever, right? That's great. You want all of those things. Cool. I'm going to tell you this. I want you to, this is my call to action. I want you to write a list of your top 5 right now, core values. What do you seek in a person? I want you to write that down. Okay. And after you write down those core values, I want you to seek to become those things. Because here's what I find, right? What most people want is what they cannot provide. Of course, I know Danae would have loved to have a man who wasn't a cheater, who was honest, who showed up in a particular way. She really wanted somebody to save her, because a lot of us want that. We want somebody to come in and save us from our trauma, save us from our hurt, save us from our pain. And what we end up finding is a lot of times, and that's not in every case, but in most cases, they end up just piling onto the pain because it's our responsibility to heal it. But we can't ask for what we are not willing to provide. We want a man that is honest, but we're not honest with them. How do I know that she wasn't honest with Derrick? Remember, she said, I did not say anything. And we think an act of omission is what? You think because you omitted it, you didn't say anything? You didn't talk about your true feelings? You weren't honest with him about what you really wanted? You think that by omitting it, that makes you less honest? No, ma'am. No, ma'am. An act of omission is just that. It's not the truth of how you really feel. It's not the truth of what you really want. You're not even expressing your true feelings and emotions. But that's what you want in return? I need you guys to think about a relationship as a two-way street. So you have to start getting honest with yourself. Listen, and I'm telling y'all exactly what I did. I was like, okay, these are the things. I wrote a list. It was like black love, and these are the values that I desire. And I worked my behind off to become the things that I said that I wanted on the list. And it's very, very important to do so. And we have to start speaking our truth. Because you stuff your truth down and don't tell him anything, because they talk about being the man's peace. You can still be somebody's peace and be honest. It's how you guys decide to go about doing that. You can still be a woman's peace and be honest. It's how you decide to go about doing it. And if you cannot effectively communicate because you see, I don't like conflict. Let me tell y'all something. I really want people to stop saying that. It's not that you don't like conflict. You don't want clarity. Because you think that a hot conversation, which is a honest, open, transparent conversation, is conflict. It's not. It's clarity. This is when you will get clear on what it is that person is feeling, what they are thinking, and what they honestly want you to know. Now, again, if it doesn't align with your values, I'm going to ask you why you're in the place and staying in the place where you're miserable. Why? There are a million people. I say it over again. There's a million people in this world. 1 million. And I know it's easier said than done. I've stayed in relationships longer than I should have. I get it. But it was a healing that I took on for myself that would never, and I mean never ever happen again. And so let me tell you something else that Nia Jackson said that I need you guys to test. Okay? She said, because also the interviewee, Laterras Whitfield, he said also, I'm going to get all the healing I need so that when I show up in the next relationship, because he's very honest about the fact that he was a cheater and stuff. So he said, when I show up in the next relationship, I won't show up the same. Let me tell you when you're going to know that you're healed. When you get in the next relationship. Yeah, like how you going to know that you're healed? It's the truth. You can do all the therapy and take all the time, and that's what you're supposed to do. Take the time, take the therapy so that you've worked through the proper channels to understand how to effectively communicate, to understand how to have, hot conversations, to understand how to respond instead of reacting all over it. To understand emotional intelligence. All of those things you should 1000% be doing to learn how to be more into yourself so you're not clocking your partner every 5 minutes. If the one thing I will appreciate the lady who says sprinkle, sprinkle said is if you're thinking about a man and or a woman every 5 minutes, there's something going on with you. And not that we shouldn't be in love and not that we shouldn't be thinking about them. Not saying that, but majority of the time you should be fixated on taking care of yourself mentally, emotionally, physically, financially. You should really be into you, right? And not from a selfish standpoint. So that, it's, so when you think about it, right, you won't know that you're completely healed until that next relationship comes along and you start walking through it, and then they do something that kind of reminds you of what your ex, and then if it triggers the heck out of you, there's some more layers there, okay, boo? It was the same thing with me when I learned about, how did I know that I was healed from being touched at 13? How did I know that I was healed from, my mommy and daddy issues? Essentially, when I got around my aunt, who a husband it was, and when I got around my parents, I didn't feel that same anxiety. And when they said something, I didn't feel set off by it. It was like, man, I was set off. It was like trigger warning. And I'm going to tell you this too. I don't run from triggers. I run into them. The reason why I don't run from triggers is because that's the alarm bells that's setting off saying, hey, I need you to look at this thing. So you're being triggered. Okay, so why are you being triggered in this scenario? What's going on with you, right? What is this reminding you of? Is this a trigger warning from my past, or is this something that is letting me know that this person that I'm around right now is not in alignment with my values, not in alignment with where I'm heading and what I said that I want for my life, and I need to not be around them. I don't got to dog them out. I don't have to do any of that. I can just remove myself from the picture. So this is why I want you to set about some core values for yourself. I want top 5 core values that you seek in other people, and I want you to work on that for yourself. When you get around, if you have somebody who's gone through a traumatic event, you want to know if you're healed, that's when you will know about it. So when you start dating again and you start getting into relationships, you're going to know. Quick, fast, and in a flurry. But it's also going to test your gangster. And what is your gangster? Your core values. Because you should, if you start betraying your core values, you're going to find yourself in situations that you shouldn't be in. Because if you notice, my core values doesn't say anything about a height, a color, he got to be 6'5", with a beard and all. Core values don't say any of that. I'm talking about the inside stuff. I'm talking about character traits. Okay? What character traits? Somebody who's respectful. Well, if you want somebody who's respectful and you're around them and you watch them disrespect everybody from their children to their mama to their baby mama, and you think, it's not going to happen to me, I'm going to need you to think again. Okay? You get with a man who's been cheating on the person and you get with them while they're cheating, you think it's going to be different for you, I need you to think different. Ask me how I know. Okay? We got it? Now, Thank you guys for allowing me to walk through that. I know it's a lot to get to. It's a lot to unpack in 30 minutes, and I didn't unpack it all, but those were some really vital points that I wanted to hit. Number one, when you first, venture into your spirituality, take your time and learn more about it before you get on here, on this good here internet, spewing verses and everything else at people. That's number one. Number two, write you a list of core values that you seek in others. In other words, these are core values. Listen, this should be across the board, whether it's a man, whether it's your girlfriends, your guy friends, or whatever. These set 5 core values. What are your top core values? And then I want you to work on becoming that. Okay. I want you to start looking at, if you're a person who doesn't like conflict, I want you to start looking at conflict as clarity. Okay. And the number one thing, I kind of went backwards. The number one thing, if you are a person who is experiencing any of these things, if you're in relationships where you just feeling mentally, emotionally, verbally, and or physically abused, I want you to pick up the phone right now and start calling to get yourself some help and some therapy. If it's not as bad as therapy, I need you to get you a coach on the line ASAP so we can look at where you come from to help you understand why you're operating in the space you're operating now, so that you can operate differently in the future. You absolutely can have a life that you love. That's why I'm leaning in. You absolutely can have a life that you love. But you got to choose it, honey. You got to choose it. And you got to face those facts, those things that we don't want to face about ourselves, to say, why am I in this situation? And from the beginning, what is it about me that I'm allowing myself to stay in it? Even once I discover it, because sometimes we don't know. I get it. I lived it. I've been in a multitude of relationships. Well, like in the beginning, you just don't even see it. Like you're blind to it. But then there comes an awakening. There's a moment where, where it's like, oh, wait a minute. So once you see it, and if you still desire to stay in it, you got to ask yourself some questions of why. There's no way, where in the world a man could beat me upside my head and ain't that much healing in the world. Well, I'm going to say I'm going to stay. And that's me. Why? Because that's one of my core values. Okay? Period. Have I ever been in those relationships? Yes. But I can tell you what I will never do again. Because if you ask me why I was in that relationship, I will tell you just how much I hated myself. It was worse than love. I hated who I was. I hated who I was. I hated how I felt. I hated how I look. So I felt I deserved that. Until I got the healing for myself to understand that not only do I not deserve that, nobody deserves that. There is nothing you could do or say to ever make somebody hit you in your face or hit you in your body. But I also had to learn that for myself, because I was also a hitter. See, I can own my truth today. But this is also, and this is not to sell y'all some book. I need y'all to hear me. I was instructed by God after I went through a series of things to write this book. And I'm going to talk about it. Not that I need to sell it, but because I want to see people get healed. I want to see them to start to walk in their journey. I want them to find their way. I want them to live a life that they love and that they're pleased with, so they can have joy every day. Notice I didn't say happiness. I said joy every day. A life of gratitude. To be thankful and grateful that you got another day to change it, to do another thing. You absolutely can be. You are the CEO of your life. Nobody can run you. When you get over here, when you start to really dig into you, you're going to learn that. So I love you guys. I hope you have the most amazing Sunday. And again, next week, we're going to talk about, 5 steps to the healing journey. I hope you have the most amazing, amazing Sunday.